guys, back again with more Orencast 2. I'm going to be showing you guys my warrior guide of what I think is the best for a warrior gear wise, inscription wise, and what I think people who are level 45 should focus on getting for a warrior. This is my opinion. A lot of people have different opinions on their inscription, so just so you know, this is what I think is best for the warrior class. So first of all, let's start with the gear. You should only watch this video once you're level 45, because I won't be showing you what's best until you reach level 45. So first of all, we have the gear. What I think, when you get level 45, you need to focus on one of your heritage weapons. So it's either your claymore, your maul, or your sword and shield. What I think is best for a warrior is the sword and shield. Why the sword and shield is the best is, first of all, the sword and shield increases your defense chance. And in dungeons these days, a lot of people need tanks, and there's shortage of tanks. And with the sword and shield, you can do dungeons, you can do solo challenges, you can do PvP, you can do almost everything with the sword and shield. A warrior is built in a way that we're able to tank a lot of damage, and we're able to deal some kind of damage. So it's a tanky class, and it's able to do damage. So having a sword and shield will help you be really tanky and also make you be able to do damage. And then if you want to be a more DPS class and want to be able to DPS, I would suggest, for PvP, I would suggest getting the dual swords from Battlefield for that. And if you really want to be a DPS in a dungeon, you can go for the claymore as a betrayal. But keep in mind that we are mostly made to be both tanky and DPS class, so you won't be doing more DPS than, for example, archers and other classes which are meant to do DPS. So I think the class is meant to be more of a tanky class, and the good thing with the shield is it helps you everywhere, at world bosses, in PvP, in dungeons, and everywhere. So farm the solo rush challenge, as you can see here, for your heritage materials to upgrade your shield. And if you really want to be a DPS, you can get the claymore. But yeah, I would focus on getting the shield heritage first. So let's look at the PvE inscriptions. So right now, my PvE inscriptions advice would be either for your Whirlwind, you get the Firestorm inscription because it's a really good AoE for mobs. For the charge, after charging, your armor resistance are increased by 10%, making you even more tanky. Battle Howl, Worm Tongue inscription. It's really good because it removes all the debuffs you get on you. So if you have poison on you, you can remove it, and it heals you and everyone of your allies which are close for 10 seconds. So it heals you 10% health to you and all allies, which is great. Then you have Lion's Roar, and it gives you get the inscription Ridicule. As you can see, I haven't even opened the other inscriptions yet. The one I could use for PvE is this one called Shielding Shout, that reduces damage that allies receive by 15%. But I rather use Ridicule, which reduces damage I receive by 35%, and it taunts your enemies, so it helps you hold the aggro off the bosses, which is a really necessary skill for a tank. So for Furious Vengeance, I use Resurgent. It restores a lot of health, and it's really helpful when you take damage. The skill will activate and you can heal a lot of heal back. And then we have Seismic Shock. This is a great skill for mobs because it does a lot of AoE damage. I use Shock Bolt to do as much damage as possible, because the other one is a silence, and the second one, Breakquake, is slow. So I would use a Shock Bolt for PvE. Then we have Spear of Ancients, and I would be using Javelin Outrage because rage is really important, having enough rage to use your skills. So this will give you 45 rage every time you use the spear, which is a lot of health. And I will explain soon why it is a lot of help having a lot of rage. And then in the end, targeted attack. So I use the I can't say this name, but the yellow skill, each of the skill has a 40% chance to replenish the rage spent. So what the good thing about this spell is sometimes you can use this attack without it taking any rage at all, which is really great because you need all the rage you can get, because that's mostly what the warriors struggle with, is having enough rage. So now let's go to the passive inscriptions. So as a tank, I would use these master tenacity and outrageous defense. So why I would use tenacity is once you reach over under 20% health, 30% health, the damage you take decreases. So it helps you a lot being able to tank bosses, and then having outrageous defense. So what is great about this skill is it gives you already an extra 10% armor and resistance, but for every rage you have, you will get 0.1% armor and resistance for each point. So basically, if you're having a hard time tanking something, just save your rage up till the maximum rage you can get, and just you'll be able to take less damage. So I have a card that gives me the Seething Rat effect without having it equipped. But if you don't have the card, I would suggest getting Outrageous Defense and Seething Rat, so that you can get even more rage saved up, so you take even less damage. So let's move to my card deck. So my card deck, I have the Sword and Shield card. The Sword and Shield card is pretty easy to get. You get it by doing the dungeons like GFL, and the card fragments drop like crazy. So this card is really good because it increases your defense chance, and if you can get the effect, it will give you the Seething Rat passive skill, so you don't have to equip it as a passive. Then I have other cards like the Dragon card because it helps me be more tanky, and these other cards like giving me more strength, and these other cards aren't that important. You can get which terrain card you think is best. I have the Shadowland terrain card, but I'm going to switch it out for the Speed card, and I have the Critical Chance. The other good Critical Chance helps me both as tank and DPS, but there's also a better card where you can get Defense Strength. So you can have to farm solo dungeon to upgrade your cards and so on. But yeah, this is my card deck, and now look at my companions I use. So this is not the optimal use of my companion spots, but I have Kappa Kid to give more HP, because more HP always helps me as a tank, and DPS. I also have the Magic Unicorn, which also gives me HP and physical might. Then I have the Walker, which gives me a lot of physical might, which is good when I do PvP, and it helps me do more damage in the dungeon. And then I have the Lion badge, physical might 322. So I'm gonna switch out this card for this companion for probably a critical one, because I have really low critical, or another HP companion, because I think that's more important for the warrior class, having both HP and having some physical might, so you can are able to do some damage. So that is like my setup, and the best pet right now which you can use for a warrior having active is the Ice Walker pet, the Arctic Herald, because it gives you more HP back, and it's a really good pet to use. So basically my rotation, if I'm doing a dungeon, I would always charge whenever it's ready, because whenever I charge, I gain range, and I gain more defense because of the inscription. I take less damage. So if you're struggling with a dungeon, this is what I would do. I would get my rage capped like this, and then whenever I use a skill that takes rage, like target attack, I lose rage. Then I follow up with a skill that gives me rage. So I always keep my rage capped at all times. So I use a skill that takes rage, I get rage back, and then I just keep continuing and tanking like this, because in this way you keep your rage at full. That means you take less damage in every hit because of your passive skill. So that's my PvE setup for dungeons. And then if you want to use Claymore, you can use Claymore, and you wanted to be a DPS in a dungeon, you just switch out your tenacity with the Weapon Master, so you do more damage. You can use the Thunderclap as to do more damage at bosses. and the rest of the inscription you keep the same. If you want to do more damage, you can switch it out, doing more damage with Furious Vengeance, but it takes a lot of rage, so I wouldn't suggest it. The rest of it you just keep the same. You can do also put gain 40 rage after roaring on the Battle Howl, but with this it will help your whole team heal up when you're struggling. Now let's check the PvP setup. So my PvP setup, I have two PvP setups. So I have the full tanky setup, and I never change my inscriptions. These are the inscriptions I use for both dual swords to do DPS and to be tanky. So I will have these set up, tenacity and outrageous defense. Sometimes I activate doing more damage when I use the dual swords, but I usually keep this setup on my inscriptions. So and this spell I'll use Hurricane because I can slow down targets when they're probably like trying to run away from me. Because for example, rangers and mages, they have a long range, so being able to slow them helps me catch up and deal damage to them. On my charge, I usually use charge will stun the enemies around the target, because in world PvP and battlefield, people are together a lot of times, so when you're like on a base, you can stun both of them at the same time. But if you, for example, doing duels, I would suggest getting the crippling blitz, because it reduces the target's armor by 20%. But usually for PvP, I have stunning stampede on. And then Battle Howl, I have Worm Tongue. Of course, it heals me and it removes any debuffs I have. So if a ranger puts like poison slow on me, I can, or a mage tries to freeze me, I can remove the stun by using Worm Tongue. And I don't use Battle Howl, Lion's Roar, often, because I only use it to like try get aggro, but it's not really a spell I use a lot for PvP. So for Furious Vengeance, I use Serious Slam because it helps me stun the target, and that's really helpful in PvP, being able to stun so you can deal some more damage, because most of the classes are kiting away from you, so stunning them is really important when you're doing PvP. So for my Seismic Shock, I use Silencing Screed, because this skill can silence every class. So once you put it down, they can't use any spell unless they move out of it or the effect ends. So Seismic Silencing Scream is a really good spell. You can silence rangers from not being able to sneak, and it's really a helpful spell. Or you can switch it out with Break Quick when you're dueling or fighting rangers or mages, because this will put, like, let me show you guys. So what this does is it puts down slow, so it will follow you if you're running. So if you're fighting a ranger and they get into the slow, they will be slowed down in all of that area it affects. And then, but I usually use Silencing Scream. I only switch to this if I have to kill a ranger 1v1 or a mage 1v1. And then the Spear of the Ancients, I use the stun, of course. The spear will stun target for 2.5 seconds. This is a really important stun, because this is 100% stun, and it helps you catch mages and rangers who's fighting away from you. And it's just a really good spell overall. To have this inscription is really important for PvP. You have to use this if you're doing PvP. And what you guys need to know is the charge and the Furious Vengeance, they aren't 100% stun. They miss, so a lot of people think it's a glitch, but it's meant this way. The charge and the Furious Vengeance isn't meant to stun 100%, so they miss a lot and you're not able to stun your target. So that's why having the spear is very important, because then this is the one stun the warriors have. So this is my tanky setup for PvP, and with this tanky setup I can tank a lot of damage in PvP and battlefield, which helps me hold a lot of bases. And then we have my DPS setup. So my DPS setup is basically the same gear, just I have a crit ring on for more crit. Dual swords, these swords are really good for PvP. So what I use is I use the shield for everything else, for all tanky setup, even in PvP, but when I have to do damage, I switch to the dual swords for PvP, and these dual swords are meant only for PvP. So my advice is get the shield for PvE and get the dual swords for PvP. And these dual swords, and then when I have this setup, I use all the same spells Sometimes I switch in Weapon Master to do more damage depending on who I'm fighting, and I can switch the Whirlwind with Thunderclap to do even more damage. So guys, I hope this is this was helpful to you guys, and it will. And just know that this is my opinion of the warrior, and you guys, when you gear up and you get level 45, try to do some PvP, get the PvP gear if you want to do some PvP, because having the PvP gear is really important because it makes you even more tanky. Get these rings and necklaces. My advice is getting the Dauntless Angels necklace because it gives you physical might, strength, and critical chance modifier. Because your defense chance will already end up being capped by having the card and your shield, so it caps at 80%, and then you can get the Dauntless Angels rings to cap your defense strength when you're using your shield, and then you get more physical might and strength, which also helps you with getting more armor. So guys, I hope this guide helped you, and make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already for more Orencast 2.